I made my mind into a kingdom. Let me explain. So, this is meant to be A2, and I got A3. I forgot. I stuffed up. Let's begin. First phase of my art was all about my intrusive thoughts and getting to the source of where those thoughts came from, whether it be, what was the energy powering it all. And I was using a character, Limbot. I will show you to you here. I was using a character in order to sort of decipher and to sort of explain and to get to the root of where these thoughts came from. The analogy that I gave my Limbot, my little character, was that he was the screw loose in my head, right? And he was the one that was causing all this. At the end of phase 1, I come to realize that that wasn't the case. Let me lower this down. Actually, let me higher it up. The case was that something else was powering this figment of my, I guess, imagination, and they were powering these thoughts. And phase 2 is all about getting to grips with the fact that of where these thoughts come from, and it's just the instability of my emotions, I would say. Trying to figure out how to manage that instability, because I don't think I had or developed necessary habit or the necessary mechanism in order to keep them stabilized. I literally just came up with that. I think this is actually working for me. So first I had to create the characters that represented my emotions, right? I call them the dwellers. There are 6 of them, and I am using them as ways to communicate the voices that I have in my head, aka the emotions that I have in my mind, basically, that are altering, that are developing, that are making, that are coming up with these thoughts, these ideas, and they all kind of sort of stem from memories, experiences. The best way I can compare my idea is basically something that's already been done, right? It's the best way to that's the best way to really explain something. The most similar thing, and very eerie similar actually, is the movie Inside Out. When you go into Riley's mind and you see her, basically her brain, her mind, and how happiness, joy, joy, sadness, disgust, how they all sort of mingle and work together in order to produce Riley's feelings and also her reactions, and what caused her core memories, right? My idea, actually, I didn't even consider Inside Out when I started making this sort of this kingdom of mine. My kingdom isn't as childlike in a sense. There is definitely childlike in the sense of the way it's designed, but every sort of place and every sort of section of this kingdom that I've made is rooted in a metaphor. It describes what each part of my mind is doing, and that is the distinct thing that I want to explain. I've made the kingdom out of my mind, not my brain. In my sort of idea, the brain is the physical state, whereas the mind is the mental state, the more, I guess, yeah, right? It's not physical, you can't touch it, but you can imagine it, right? So I would like to welcome you to the kingdom of la mente. Gives the Suns a big guard at 6'4", 200. James can't answer. Plays for all
this holiday magic. Thanks to Food Network, we have giant Christmas cakes and a new friend. Elf on the Shelf Sweet Showdown. Don't forget about Christmas Cookie Challenge, my personal favorite. And there's even more, which shows
bad possession by the Phoenix Suns. It looks like AD may have gotten away with one too. A lot of contact in the paint.
Tremfiant. Ask your doctor about Tremfya.
ho, ho, ho. It's that time of year again.
This team gonna win the championship. I think that number one, I love the addition of Drew Holiday and Porzingis. Guys don't want to get beat up. Guys don't want to play defense. Those are the hardest.
When we look at this, this is in the shape of my head. Looking at it from this place, from this angle, an aerial view. This is the aerial view of the Kingdom of La Mente. The Kingdom of La Mente, the name comes from La Mente translates to the mind in Spanish, whereas the brain translates to el cerebro. I can't really say that right. But so we're gonna go from this is the back of the mind all the way to the front of the mind. Get me? This purple area here, this is called the Sacred Peaks. The Sacred Peaks is a very rigid, very coarse, very rock-based area. It's a mountain range. It's a massive mountain range with 3 or 4 massive mountains in the very end of the area. Why a mountain range in this kingdom that in my mind? A mountain range for me this signifies the things that have the foundation of me basically. It's my personality, it's my morals, it's my ethics, it's everything. All that stuff is sort of set in stone, right? And it took years to sort of build up. It's everything it's the foundation of the rest of the kingdom, right? And if that area were to get damaged or were to disappear, then the rest of the kingdom falls as well. It's the thing that keeps it together, basically. To the right of it, we have what is called the ruins of suppression. The ruins of suppression is once looked like the Sacred Peaks, but over time it is degraded and it has been rotten down by negative thoughts, negative energy, basically, is what I like. An energy that I like to call the rot. It's a sort of infection that poisons everything around it. So if this rot were to go anywhere else, it can automatically destroy anything it touches. So that's why it's contained in a sort of like dome-like energy shield sort of thing. And you'll see that in the painting that I'm doing now. In the painting, it's what it looks like from the inside. The metaphor behind the ruins of suppression is that I very much followed that saying of like, you put things in the back of your mind. I used to suppress a lot of negative stuff. I used to suppress bad thoughts or like thoughts of anger, thoughts of negativity. I would suppress anxiety. I would ignore it. I would ignore sort of sadness. I would ignore being scared of stuff, and I just put in the back of my mind. And to me, I felt like I gathered all that together, and that it sort of, if I wasn't careful, all that stuff, combined could create something that would affect the rest of my mind. And there was a very brief moment in my life when I was around 25 or 26, I forgot, where it just sort of fell on me, or it just sort of opened up, and I realized that I suppressed so much that it started spurting out. So that's why I contain it here. I know it's there, but I contain it in a place where it's safe. But in the context of the story, in the context of the map, if we were to ever get out, if we were to escape, that would be a big thing, a bad thing. Now we head to this orange area right under the peaks. It is called the Crow Desert. The Crow Desert is a vast, very windy, very coarse, very hot area of the kingdom of La Mente, where it's like sort of a place lost in time. If you walk around there, it kind of looks like you're looking at the same thing over and over again. It's easy to get lost. It's easy to get forgotten there. And that's where the metaphor comes in. The metaphor came from a desert, right? Desert is a whole bunch of sand, and in the hourglass, the things you turn over and the sand comes down. It's like I took that and I was like, okay, this is the sands of time, basically. So everything in the Crow Desert are things that are forgotten. They're memories that are forgotten, lessons forgotten, and all these individual forgotten things are represented by clocks within the sand. If one of our dwellers were to go in there and try to find, the only reason why one of our dwellers would get in there is to find something that is forgotten, and it would have to be a specific clock that they have to find. I feel like I've forgotten a lot of things in my life, I think, and every now and then it just pops up. I think everyone does, like a memory or like a smell ignites it, or like a word or a song revives that sort of forgotten experience or forgotten moment. That's where those things are. To the right of that, directly right of that, we have this very big forest, which is called Abstractica. The Abstractica forest is a place that from the outside it looks just like a regular forest, but if any of our dwellers were to go in there and keep going and keep going and keep going, they would be lost in the world of hallucinations. They would be lost in the world of make-believe, in the world of impossible scenarios. And the metaphor is being that my mind tends to create situations, right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes I use them for stories. Sometimes I would replay them so much that I don't go out that night, or I feel nervous going out, or I expect the worst out of something. It makes these make-believe situations. Why I chose a forest or chose the woods, basically why I chose a forest is that once you go into a forest, it's easy to get lost, and it's easy to sort of feel like it's hiding something. You don't know what's in there, and it's impossible to sometimes get out of there. And I kind of liken it to the Amazon forest, basically, where it's so vast that you can't really comprehend if you haven't even been there. And once you step in, it's easy to get lost if you venture very too much in. So it's a place that creates a lot of things, basically, and it creates sort of this lost feeling within me. But that could be a good thing as well. You could lose yourself in imagination, which is great, but also sometimes it's not. So here now we head back over this side, and we head down to Imagination Bay, where it is a beach that is in constant nighttime. It is a constant nighttime, but the river is illuminated by a sort of green turquoise tinge that's the only way that you know that there's water there. There's not much that happens in this area except that there's a little flame always in the distance, in the horizon of the sea. You're able to see someone or something, a little flame, just go back and forth, back and forth. That is my dweller Vida, and his job is to constantly go fishing. And so when he fishes, what he fishes isn't just fish, they're ideas. Imagination Bay. Hear me out. So when he fishes it, he then puts it on fire. The smoke transforms into an idea bubble, and it travels to a place that I will explain, which is the last location that I explained. The metaphor being, I guess the ocean for me and for everyone that's everyone's like always said, like that's the final frontier. Space is of course that, but on Earth we don't know hardly. We haven't explored a lot of it, and I've always felt like my ideas really come from they come out of nowhere. Where do they come from? And so I kind of blended the two together, and I was like, I guess they come from a very deep place within my mind. Like this entire kingdom, where did I get this idea? So I had to sort of find a place where that could be represented. Now we travel back over, we hop over, we go under Abstractica, and we go to this very colorful, very pretty area called the Garden of Pip. The Garden of Pip. Who is Pip? What is Pip? Pip was a representation of my inner child. And when there were no dwellers, only he existed within my mind. When I didn't know what this was, only he existed in my mind and was taking care of La Mente, aka he was taking care of my mind and keeping me hopeful, keeping me grateful. And that's what this part represents. It's a very lush area. It's a garden that has a lot of these just like pretty flowers, and within it is also a house which is called the House of Zen. The House of Zen is a weird sort of house with a face on it. What it has or what its purpose is unknown for now, but it plays into it as I'm going to go along with the story, right? The metaphor being that this is a place of growth, this is a place of hopefulness, this is a place of youth, this is a place where my hope lives, right? Where everything else is sort of very different, this is the only place that is a remnant of my childhood, right? I would like to think that the Garden of Pip was the entire kingdom at one point. And then, as you grow, you start to make other things, you start to create things, you start to have different parts of your personality. And that sort of part gets smaller and smaller. But I don't think mine ever left, I don't think my childhood innocence and hopefulness never left. So that's what that represents. Now we go to the middle. Go to this triangle here. What is it? That is called the Banks of Memoria. It's a sort of ruined sort of area where it is a place like sort of lost in time. The floor is not concrete, it's like a stone, but it's a very it's kind of like sandstone. It's very smooth, but not slippery. It's a nice sort of stone. And the unique feature of this area is that there are these massive crystals everywhere that are embedded in the stone. And those crystals, if you look within them, they play memories over and over again. So this is where, in inside out terms, where my core memories are stored. It's where they live. And it's the things that, they may be embarrassing, they may be happy, they may be sad, they may be, it's the things that I remember the most. In comparison to Crow Desert, where everything is forgotten, in the Banks of Memoria, it's where my most important memories live and keep living and keep replaying. The metaphor being is that you have a lot of, there's things in your life that you experience and you go through, but there's only a few of them that really live with you, and that's where they are. That's what that is. It's just a place where those things really live within me. And you can get lost in the past within there. If a dweller goes in there, if one of my characters go in there and starts watching, they can get lost in the past, really. And that's sometimes what I have gone through. I've kind of just thought myself like, man, remember the good old days or whatever, you know. So there's a part of that within me as well. Now, before we get to here, to get to this brown area, we have to talk about this like white and blue line that's like basically the outline of my mind, of La Mente, and of the kingdom itself. That is a valley of emotion. Over here is where is where the painting is set. It's the entrance of the valley. It's where it all comes from. It is a river that goes throughout the whole area. And why is the valley of emotion? So, as water, it picks up a little bit of everything. It picks up a little bit of the ruins. It picks up a little bit of the sacred peaks. Picks up a little bit of the desert. Picks a little bit of the forest, the garden, the ideas. It picks it all up and it transfers it all the way down towards the next location. First off, the metaphor for the valley of emotion is that I feel like all these things, right, make up my mind. And so all these places make up my mind. All these metaphors make up my mind. And so I think I just needed a way to explain how it all sort of mixes. Just like how in Inside Out, you have like memories that are both like, they're like bittersweet. So they're both with joy, but with sadness as well. So what I wanted was a bit more complex because I'm a bit older and I'm a bit, I understand myself a little bit more. I needed something that sort of took a piece of all of it and combines it basically. And that's who I am, right? If the valley dries up, now we're going back to the story mode. If the valley dries up, that's very bad because that means or it dries up or it freezes. That means I'm frozen or I'm numb or I'm frozen in fear, I'm frozen in happiness or something like that, which is, in my opinion, not good. You have to constantly be feeling something in order to constantly be someone, you know. You can't be just numb to the world basically. So the valley of emotion goes all the way down to this brown area here, which is called the Mines of Thought. I forgot for a sec. The Mines of Thought. It's a very it's another sort of mountain range, but instead of mountains, it has two massive mines basically within them that are like very deep into the earth of this area, right? And the valley of emotion pours into there, but in the bottom of this area is very hot, right? So the water that gets poured into the mines sort of burns up on arrival and become clouds. What the clouds go is right soon. The metaphor for this, for me, I feel like when you have all these elements, you have your personality, you have your abstract thoughts, you have your negativity, you have your forgotten experiences, you have your memories, you have your hopefulness, you have your ideas, and they all sort of mix up, right? They all have to go to somewhere in order for them to be used or to be thought of, basically, right? They need to become something in order for it to be used, right? And they go into it and they become these thought bubbles, and then they raise up to the sky into another place. So the metaphor being that it's a place where all these sort of ideas and all these different these different like components of what a thought is, they go there and combine in. That's when they are able to become an actual thought, I think I got there in the end. And our last place is this part. This part here. This is called the Great Void. The Great Void is almost this thing that doesn't look like it belongs. It hangs in the sky at the very front of the mind of La Mente, in the very front of the La Mente. And it's where all the thought bubbles go. It's where all the idea bubbles go. It's everything that runs through. Everything combines to go to the minds, creates itself into a thought bubble, and goes there and becomes an actual thought. The metaphor being, I've always felt like my ideas and my thinking was always in the front of my mind. So I wanted to create a thing where it was like, okay, it's like a portal for everything that goes in my mind. And this is where it comes out from. It's a way to sort of explain where things are going, and it has an exit, basically. And it's where, and because the void doesn't look like it belongs, it doesn't, because it's part of reality at that point. It's not part of the fantasy. What the fuck? Okay, Lamente map 2. Let's see. Because it's part of reality. It's not part of fantasy, which is the fantasy that I've made in my head. This fantastical kingdom that I've based on, the complex nature of thoughts and emotions and experiences all coming together to make basically who I am, and what I say and what I do. That's what it is. That was the kingdom of La Mente. It's where my dwellers live. It's where they are going to have adventures that I'm about to start drawing about now. But why? Why make this? Why try to contain all this sort of ideas into one thing? That is the question that I guess I ask myself, and why I'm doing this. When I started to look within myself, when I started to really have self-reflection, and I started to really start to learn who I am as a person, and really start to take notice of what I say, how I react to things, how do I talk to people, how do I talk to myself. I needed something that I understood, and I understood clearly where certain things were coming from and where things existed in before they become a thought, right? And it's almost a way of sort of controlling myself and controlling my emotions, having stability over my own thoughts and emotions along, because I know that they are influenced by memories. I know they're influenced by negativity. I know they're influenced by abstract thoughts and but also I very much have this very hopeful nature and hopeful way of thinking, hopeful mentality basically. And I just needed a way to sort of tell that how I think, because I feel like even I didn't know how I did it. Even I didn't know how I thought and how I wanted to sort of, I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know how, and that's been my thing for my whole life. I don't know where my ideas come from. I kind of know now, or I have a representation of that now in the imagination bay. I just feel like it's an easy way to explain to someone, it's an easy way to explain to someone. And if someone wants to, I feel like everyone has this within their head too. They just haven't really searched far enough to really pin down, okay, what's their kingdom look like. So this is what my kingdom of my mind looks like. And it's all come together really, really well. This kind of, I didn't know it was gonna look like this when I made it, but I'm happy. So now we have our cast. We have the dwellers. We have our location, the kingdom of La Mente. So when you have characters, when you have a setting, when you have a location, what's next? Last year, around this time last year, very much so, this time last year, I was going through the most emotional time. I was going through the most emotional month of my life, where I didn't know how to control my emotions. I was crying I was almost crying every night. I was sad, I was happy, I was this, I was that. I didn't know how to control myself. The story, in a very real life setting, was about me and my reaction to feeling like I took something more serious than I should have. And what that thing was nothing more than a relationship. So, we are well on what La Mente is here. The story begins now. Welcome to the kingdom of La Mente. And let's begin.